Crafting Career and Life. Yes, everyone, with your permission, let me invite none other than Mr. Pavan Soni onto the dais. He's an author of Designing Your Career, Lead Self, Lead Others, Lead Change. Can I have a huge round of applause as I invite him onto the dais, everyone? In the meanwhile, in this particular session, we will also be joined with Maria Shah, who is the founder of Infinite Mindset Consulting and serving as a coach. A huge round of applause for Maria. Please do join us on the dais. May I also invite Professor Surjyabrat. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, sir. Thank you for joining us in this occasion. And yes, we have the complete panel here on the dais. Over to the host. And as we all know, this is again a very special session as we will be launching a very special book. I request the guests on the dais to come closer. We will be having the book, and you just need to remove the ribbon and unveil the book. To do the honors of launching this very special book, let me invite Professor Raghuram onto the stage. Please do join us on the dais, sir. It is an honor to have you here and to have launched this book in your presence. So yes, Raghuram, sir, please do join us here. We have the book, Design Your Career, Lead Self, Lead Others, Lead Change. I request Raghuram, sir, to share the copy with our guests on the stage, on the dais. And yes, can we have a huge round of applause for Design Your Career? Thank you so much, Raghuram, sir. Do you wish to read a few lines from the book that you have just unraveled on the dais? Over to you. Yes, any random two lines from the book.
Yeah. Well, actually, Pavan has made it easy. He's got a set of quotes that he's culled out from his own writing. Right? So, yeah. So, one, of course, one of the first ones is life is long, pace it well. And I'm reading this partly in respect to my friend's book, Raghunathan's book, Don't Sprint the Marathon, right? So life is long, pace it well. Says, you may die accidentally, but you can't afford to live accidentally. Okay? So, maybe one more. Okay. So, the evolution of your thinking is not a natural consequence of your career progression. Okay. So, well, there are some very good one-liners in this book. Thank you very much, Pavan, for
Thank you so much, Raghuram, sir, for doing the honors. Can we have a huge round of applause? And now I would like to hand it over to Maria Shah.
A very good afternoon, everyone, and I welcome you again to yet another session at BBLF. So we have all the topic for this session is something that we can all relate to. because we are all experiencing it all the even more now. The only thing that is constant is change, and that is the next topic for today. And so, according to, I just was reading a report by Forbes magazine. So, it said that the skills that we learn, the skills that we are relying on right now, 50% of the skills will be obsolete in the next 2 years. So, we are all going into FOBO mode now. That is fear of being obsolete. That is one of the terms that is very much prevalent in the United States these days. So the question that we need to ask ourselves is, how do we plan to stay relevant in the current times, in the VUCA times, that is vulnerability, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. So with me, as I have Dr. Pavan Soni with me, and we just launched the book, we have Dr. Raghuram and we have Dr. Surjyabrat. So my first question to Dr. Pavan Soni would be, first of all, welcome to the session again. And I would like to ask you, what is that one thing that piqued you to write this second book? Like, you're a second-time author, and your first book, which is Design Your Thinking, it is one of the best-selling books. It is a part of curriculum in many IIMs and IITs. So, what piqued your interest? What made you write your second book?
Sure. Thank you so much, Maria. So I'm glad that I'm here, first of all. And now the interest of writing this book came from this very stark realization that grossly, when you look at talent in the corporate world, I think it is grossly underutilized. I've done more than 600 workshops with close to 200 firms over the last 20 years. And when I walk into the organizations, I quickly understand that people are busy politicizing than really getting gigantically shortchanged by the same corporate structure where they went in. And if they could only really develop on what they invested for the first 20 years of their life in terms of working and learning, they'll be far better off. And once somebody retires at the age of 60, then you start realizing that how petty these battles were. But once you're into that, they become sort of existential crisis for all of you. Just to give you a perspective, I was in this very same place in 2020, a month before, just downstairs, a month before the massive lockdown. And I was remembering that in the midst of the lockdown, the only thing that mattered to us is that, will I see tomorrow morning? Am I right? Will I see my parents tomorrow morning? And not all of us are very fortunate, because many of people have lost their loved ones. So in the midst of the pandemic, 2020, 2021, the only thing that mattered to us was, I should see tomorrow. My loved ones must see tomorrow. And here we are sitting right now without masks, without any of those cautions that we were bred into. And suddenly what matters to us is our promotion. Correct? So from a moment where we were on the bottommost rung of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is physiological, now we are almost there at the pretty much at the top of the rung, where we talk about self-actualization and self-esteem. So that's how fleeting our priorities are. But when we go to the corporate, I realize that some of the best laid plans, people with the best intentions in their heart and mind, are getting underutilized. And for the longest time, people are not even sure of why am I here. So in this book, so that's been the motivation, that if I can offer people some insight on how do we navigate our lives. Because think about that. If you live till the age of 75, 27 years of your life, you are either sleeping or trying to sleep. The second thing out of that is working, which means that minus sleeping, the highest amount of time that you spend in your entire life, if you live till the age of 75, is actually working or preparing to work. And that's the reason why your career can't be an element of accident. And I don't mean career as something that you do till the age of 60. I mean career you do till the age you live, because you need to occupy yourself meaningfully. So that's been the motivation of my second book. So this is my second book, Design Your Career, and my first book was called Design Your Thinking, which was published by Penguin in 2020. Building on this, and I'll just pass it back to Maria. If you have to really think about that in terms of why we need to pay attention to your career, the simple fact is that it can't be an element of accident. You can't have an accidental career. You can start accidentally, but you should not finish accidentally. That's extremely critical. So in this book, what I've attempted to do is I've called out insights from the world of arts, sports, military, literature, medicine, warfare, and what have you, and try to understand that how people have been navigating their careers in a very systematic manner. And to begin with, a question that I have for all of you is this: that when we talk about career, which is not something that happens on a Monday morning, career is happening as we are sitting right now on the Saturday noon. Look at your prime drivers. What motivates you? What's your key driver? Now, for a fair amount of people, the key driver is fear. That if I don't punch in by 8:30, I lose half day's attendance. If I don't show up on time, I'll be missing out on this meeting. And if my boss doesn't sign off the meeting, I can't sign off. And fear is a great motivator. In fact, the very fact that we have survived as a species and we are sitting here in the room right now is because our ancestors were very, very paranoid. Very, very paranoid. And that's why fear is a big motivator. But if fear is your motivation to have a career, the only problem is that it exhausts you very quickly. The second motivation that you can possibly have is greed. And I don't talk about greed in the city of startups because many startups are not driven by fear as much as by greed. I need to make, and if I don't make, somebody else will make it. And we have been bred into, thanks to our education system, it's a zero-sum game, which is not, certainly, life is not a zero-sum game. People can win en masse. So greed. The problem with greed is that you never know what is enough. So fear is a motivation, greed is a motivation, and I will urge you to understand what is the motivation for your own career. Is it fear or greed? The third motivation is duty. You're doing your career just because there is a duty, and you have to walk into an ICU, walk into a hospital in the middle of the night, that the people, especially the paramedic staff, is not there because of fear or greed. I'm sure about it. It's a sense of duty. But the problem with duty is that in duty there is a sense of reciprocity, that I must do it so that I can get something in return. Unfortunately, even many of the loved relationships dilute into a sense of duty. So you have fear, greed, duty. But the most pious, I believe, and the rarest of it is when you're doing your career out of sheer love. So fear is if I don't do it. Greed is if I do it. Duty is I should do it. Love is I just do it. And if you can identify some element of love, I'm not saying 8 hours of your day has to be love. I don't think it is true for anybody. Nobody can have 8 hours of day as a love. But some amount of that day has to be love. If I go back to the writing journey of the book, I had all the 4 drivers propelling me. Fear. The fear that I had for the longest time is that what if I'm not able to finish the book? What if some of the best ideas which I have in my life, I die them with? I had a sense of greed that I would like the book to reach corners, and my honestly this might sound very parochial, but I strongly believe that as an author, my intent at least is to shape people's thinking. I really want to influence the way people think, and I think that's the highest call. So that's been the greed. The duty, and that's why my editorial team was fantastically at it. My duty was to ensure that I turn the manuscript on time. And as I was talking to my friend Sputnik, it's extremely critical that you are disciplined in your writing journey. But love, you can navigate the gravity of the remaining 3 if you truly love what you're trying to do. So that's been the key message of the book, and what I want to convey to all of you sitting over here is that consider your career seriously, because career is your immortality project. Art was the second best thing to mortality, but career is the first, which I strongly believe. So yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, thank you so much. Indeed, living life by design is something that's really, really important, and we all look up to it. So my next question would be to Dr. Surjyabrat, who is also the Associate Dean for Corporate Relations at ICFAI Business School. So my question to you, Mr. Surjyabrat, is, as you know that we are living in times of uncertainty, and you have been working with students for last 8 years. So what are the main challenges that you face, and how do you overcome those challenges to stay relevant in these times?
So good afternoon, and thank you, Maria, for this very interesting question. I am from ICFAI Business School, our Bangalore campus, and we have, like what Dr. Pavan Soni was talking about, we hands-on actually we are day-to-day seeing it and involved in it. We have students coming from pan-India, right, across the country. The entire diversity that we call India is on our campus. So the first challenge is, how do we enable them to navigate this VUCA world is the mindset, creating a mindset, because they come from, as I said, diverse background, educational background, cultural background, geographical background. So how do we bring them to a common platform, where we are able to help them a mindset which is like the autopilot, which can give them the purpose. We talked about why. Many times we do things without knowing why. So if we can instill, that aspiration, many times the aspiration is not well articulated amongst themselves, that why I'm doing what I'm doing, that is the major part, I believe. No matter whatever intervention we do, as an open system, we collaborate with the entire society, whether it is the industry, whether it is, people coming from various backgrounds. We invite them to our campus. We have a curriculum which is updated according to the need of the industry. We have various, people coming in, whether it is alumni or whether it is industry experienced faculty. But notwithstanding whatever we do, various kind of curricular, co-curricular, extracurricular activities. But unless and until, I am not sure why I am doing what I am doing, you cannot make the horse drink the water, right? So for that, one certain principles of what we call the spiritual intelligence by Donna Johar in 1997, she coined the term spiritual intelligence. It is about consistently seeking a higher purpose in life. So that is what in IBS, we try to do that, so that, I become self-aware, I'm clear about my purpose, and I navigate, what kind of skills, as you rightly pointed out, that whatever I'm learning today, maybe, down the line next year it becomes irrelevant. But again, I'm not sure, as Dr. Soni talked about, a career that we can plan. But as I look into my students' career ahead, 35 to 40 years ahead, can they actually plan systematically, or they have to kind of adapt to kind of unfolding scenarios? So for that, we believe that that sense of purpose is very important. The mindset is very important, so that from time to time, we will have various concepts, various technologies, various frameworks which will come up in terms of building a career, and what is a job perhaps will again be redefined, but I must be able to adapt to that. So that is what, our focus of our education or the interventions that we do on our campus.
Thank you so much, Mr. Surjyabrat, for your wonderful insights. My next question would be for Dr. Raghuram. So you have been the director of IIMs in so many stints. So my question to you is, so there have been many courses and institutions in India who have been providing MBA courses. But MBA from IIMs, they have not lost their sheen. They continue to maintain that level of quality, that level of relevance. So how do you do what you do, is my question to you.
Yeah, I think IIMs, for whatever reason, they have retained their quality, and more so, in fact, if you look at any academic discipline and we take global rankings, we are struggling to break into the top 100. But in management, we have always been, whether it is IIM Ahmedabad, Bangalore, ISB, pretty much in the top 50. Even before this desire to move into top 100 and other disciplines have been there. So something right has happened in the management institutions, especially the ones at the, if you will, the higher end. So anyway, I think all of them started with a very clear sense that they have got to create these high impact products coming out. And I think in the early years, the focus on teaching, high quality teaching was there. But of course, as things have been changing, given the environment, I think as a true academic institution, focus on creating knowledge has come in now. And I think that will enable, especially the IIMs, to continue to be in the top. So I think that's a very significant change that has happened, I would say, in the past decade. Now, of course, I think it's also important that we look at the larger higher education spectrum in the country because, I mean, again, in the last decade, so many more universities have come up and they're kind of sprouting, more. And we need more because our gross enrollment ratio, that is, number of eligible students going from high school to college, is about 30% now. If you look at a country like the US, it's 70%. So clearly, a developed country, you need more, and we're just going to need more of these. So I think it's also important how we look at the entire higher education spectrum. I think we need more high quality academics, and there is a shortage in the country. We do not have enough high quality academics, and I think people are stretched, especially on teaching. And that's not good because as an academic, you need to be able to have time for teaching and other activities. I'm not saying that you got to be able to publish in top rated journals, but one of the things that other institutions have learned to do from IIMs or IITs is how to protect the non-teaching time of faculty. Somehow putting a faculty in a classroom and measuring how many hours you have taught seems to be the primary KRA, the key result area. And I think we need to move away from that. So I think that's a very important, somehow in IIMs that is part of the DNA, where the non-teaching time is protected, and faculty, like Harish said earlier, I mean, daydreaming is good. You got to, you got to allow thoughts to come in and in a free manner. Okay. There is a talk of trade-offs here, and I'm quite, I like some of the trade-offs that Pavan has captured in his book. But again, what I find in that if you really want people to lead self, lead others, lead change, as he, as part of the title of his book, actually these are not trade-offs. Instead of or mindset, they have to become an and mindset. I must have high span of control at the same time deal with specialization. I must have attention to detail at the same time be able to develop a big picture view. And I think it is these people who really will have the mettle to lead. In academics, we talk teaching or research. No, it's the faculty who's able to do both and synergize both are the ones that will actually make an impact. So that's, I had a point also on VUCA. So everybody likes to talk VUCA. It's a nice characterization of the external world, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous, and therefore we got to do something. To me, I think we have to flip VUCA around, and VUCA stands for, and that's what all of us need to be imbibed with: vision, understanding, clarity, and agility. That's what we need. VUCA is not anything new. When Second World War happened, people in Europe didn't know one day which country they belonged to, another day which country they belonged to. COVID is not the first. We've had the Spanish flu. I mean, there have been instances that society, countries have seen massive, whatever the, the VUCA, the volatile connotation is. But I think what we need in a consistent way is the vision, understanding, clarity, and agility. So let me stop here. And I think these are the changes we need to be working towards. Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for the wonderful framework that you have shared. Another So it's going to be one last question for Pavan, Mr. Pavan. So I would want to ask you, what is that one advice that you would want to give to the audience? I'm sure there would be many people who would be aspiring to be authors just like you are there. I've seen so many students come up to you and talk to you. So what is that one advice that you would want to give them?
All right. So I was just been shown a plate card that shut up. So I would just want to indulge you for about a minute or two talking about what what took me to this particular juncture of time. So after graduating from NITI Mumbai, which is now IIM Mumbai in 2004, I came to Bangalore. My first job was in Wipro. And I spent about 6 years working there, and I was totally, I can use the word dissatisfied, for the simple reason that I was never ever living to my fullest potential. I would be doing extensively, which is now called as moonlighting, but I would definitely want to leave the campus as quickly as 5 o'clock and go out and teach. And I would look forward to my weekends, because Saturday, Sunday, instead of hitting forum, I'll go and teach at various colleges for some very small change, but that learning was very critical for me. And then I started realizing that I was looking forward to my Sundays and Saturdays, not Mondays. And that's the first inkling that you have that maybe you're at the wrong place. And that's where I started writing my GMAT. So while sitting at Wipro, I would write TOEFL, I would write GMAT, and I would apply to 25 colleges across the world. Out of 25 colleges, and I spent 4 lakh rupees in application fee alone, while very much in the company. And the only person who knew that I'm doing it was my boss. His name is Vikesh Mehta. He knew it. Nobody else in the company had any inkling what I was up to. And then out of 25 colleges where I applied to, spending 4 lakh rupees, 24 colleges rejected me. And the beauty of these rejections in the PhD program is they don't feel the need to explain. They just give you one word answer: reject. And then you send an email, then the email bounces. So that's the end of the story. 24 rejections. And it was really disheartening, because by then I had mentally resigned from Wipro. I was no longer mentally, emotionally there. The only college I applied to in this country was IIM Bangalore. Because I was pretty clear that if I will be in India, I'll be in Bangalore. If I wouldn't be in Bangalore, I wouldn't be in India. And I was lucky enough that I got to the campus. But this thing was bothering me, that why did I get 24 rejections? So after joining IIM Bangalore on 2nd of April 2011 was the interview. And 2nd of April 2011 is also famous for another big reason. In case somebody knows that, there was a day in which we lifted the World Cup. So we had, all of us in our cohort had this thinking that we'll clear PhD World Cup to World Cup. And as anybody who has gone through the PhD would now laugh at this whole idea that you can't finish a PhD in 4 years. You'll be lucky 5, tremendously lucky 4, but quite impossible but for that. And I was very clear that I want to do my PhD in this topic, and I want to be a teacher. From the day 1 of my PhD program, I really want to be a teacher. And that's where I got into the PhD program, and I was totally disillusioned about what a PhD program is, in case anybody is entertaining that thought. So the first thing that you get into the PhD program is you think that you know what you want to do a PhD on, and everybody should just get out of your way and you should do your PhD work. And then I was introduced to something called the coursework. And in the coursework, we are really gone to the brass tacks of what it is to be a researcher, an academician, doing a PhD. I hated it, but now I think this was the best investment of time that I could ever have had. The best investment. In those 2 years, we read some of the most amazing stuff written in the last century and a century before that, which is completely out of print today. 2 years of the rigor that we had, and then we got into the piece of the PhD program, all sitting in the library. And halfway down that piece, it occurred to me
I'm
that
so sorry to interrupt. Thank you so much for your
but I need to
insights.
wrap this up now.
Sure, sure.
Yeah. Since I'm the author. Yeah. And halfway down, I realized that doing a full-time academic role might be a thing that I can do at 55. So why not start a company? And midway down the PhD, the company happened. In the company, what happened was, why not be an author? And then the authoring happens. So what I want, the only advice which I want you to have is make your life a portfolio of career and not a career. Never have a career, have a portfolio of career. Because if you have a career, your hopes, aspirations, happiness, and sadness is pivoted to that career. And I think if you can have a portfolio, that will be useful for all of us. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pavan. So my next last question would be for Mr. Surjyabrat. So what is that one quality you would want students to imbibe so that they can survive in the VUCA world?
Very simple, outcome-based learning. You have to be very clear why you are learning, the purpose, and how do you do that? First is humility. Humility allows you to learn, adapt, and be resilient, and that will be my advice. That humbleness and keep on learning. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Dr. Raghuram.
But Maria, I know you're not going to ask me, but since Pavan is from IIM Bangalore, I can't help but remark on his first book. The title of the book is Design Your Thinking. The book is about design thinking, and I really think that the way he has titled it, that you can only do good design thinking if you design your thinking. That's a very important point to reflect, and I really appreciate the way he's titled the book. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, I'm questions to ask, and we have to fit all of it into just 10 minutes. So, are there any questions from the audience?
Yeah, I would like to understand with all the points that you raised, Pavan, how do you prioritize all the things? Like, for example, if you want to learn, there are so many things to learn. If you want to pursue your goals, there are so many things to pursue. How do you prioritize it? Is it based on like outcomes? Is it based on your interest? Yeah, any design around that?
Fantastic. So once you cross 35, you need to avoid problems. Till 35, you have the ability of solving problems. So the best way to solve a problem is to see, does it fall under your zone of influence? So the best way to prioritize, I think, is to shrink your zone of concern and expand your zone of influence. And 3 simple tips. First of all, stop watching 24-hour news channels. And I'm serious about this. You would not miss anything in your life, except you will be living little healthier. The second thing is exit as many WhatsApp groups as you can. Neither you nor somebody else will realize your absence. Life moved on, the same number of friends. Unless somebody can donate 1 unit of blood to you in a hospital, it doesn't matter. Believe me. The third thing is that do only things which you can do better than most people you know. Otherwise, don't even go there. Because you would be able to achieve a gigantic stuff in your life. Please understand, people like Alexander the Great, people like my favorite Heath Ledger, or for example, Swami Vivekananda and Bruce Lee never saw their 40th birthday. Van Gogh at 37. So you don't have to have a very long life, but the key is if you can realize what you ought to do till you are 35, I think you are setting up pretty well. So exit WhatsApp groups, channelize your attention, conserve and converge your energies, then I think anything is possible, man. Yeah.
Any more questions? We can take one more.
Are educational institutions free of political interference?
Granularity there, and maybe worth a discussion outside.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being a wonderful audience. And thank you, Dr. Raghuram. Thank you, Dr. Pavan and Surjyabrat. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria.
Hey, Pavan, just one small question. I heard about this attention to detail and the big picture. Most of us either straddle one way in either towards attention to detail or getting caught in big picture. How do we balance this two?
So just let me give you an example. There are two ways of walking. I can walk like this, or I can walk like this, right? So when I'm walking like this, I'm very careful that I don't trip on anything, but I'm not sure which direction I'm walking. And I'm walking like this, it might so happen that I might fall off, but at least I'm roughly in the right direction. So the saying goes that, this is very critical saying, the saying goes that don't be busy reorganizing the chairs on the deck of Titanic. Many people, unfortunately, are busy reorganizing the chairs on the deck of Titanic because their JD just said that much. My job description said that the chairs need to be pristine. But I think once in a while, you just need to raise your head. And the wedge for you is delegation. If you can delegate to people, trust them that they may make mistakes, but you can tolerate the mistakes, a lot can be achieved. So the reconciliation is important, but I would still tip on the big picture. Big picture is missing.
No, the key here is that, right, this big picture thing, a lot of people get caught into it. But what they don't understand is that people who develop the big picture have got a lot of micro level details with which they are able to develop a big picture very easily. That is a plot which people who are shaping up their careers miss out and assume that, okay, big picture, bada mota mota pata lag gaya, I'm fine. And that's where they are getting trapped in a lot of challenges of today.
So if I can indulge you, sir, big picture does not mean that you are missing out on who should do what. You need to know who should do what, but don't do it. As Bill Gates said, that strategy is not about solving problem, it's about solving people. So I think if you can get the right people for the right role, then only you can afford to see the big picture.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Remain on the dais. Design your career, lead self, lead others, lead change by Pavan Soni. I'm so sure this session can go up to till the end of the day, but we have limited time, because of which we will be proceeding with unveiling a copy of this book. I request Raghuram sir to kindly do the honors of unveiling Design Your Career by Pavan Soni. Can we have a huge round of applause for this moment? Undoubtedly, this was a great value addition to the 10th edition of Bangalore Business Literature Festival. Yes, everyone, for Mr. Pavan Soni. Thank you. Please do remain on the dais. We do have a token of appreciation. I request V. Raghunath sir to kindly join us on the dais to present token of appreciation for our guests of this session. And yes, let's grace them with our great round of applause for adding more value and gracing us with their knowledgeable presence here. Thank you so much. Can we please have a group photograph?